Picture this, a square in imperial China, thousands packed shoulder to shoulder on the stage. A man tied to a wooden frame, bare chest, bare legs, eyes wide. Next to him, a man in red robes sharpens his knives. You know exactly what's about to happen. 4,000 cuts. They start with the cheeks, not to kill, to flay. Slow and measured, while a priest chants Confucian rites like a lullaby. Slice 2, then 3, then 10. Still alive. This is Lingchi, death by 1,000 cuts. But it was never a metaphor, it was policy. Codified justice for treason, parricide, betrayal. One body and 4,000 incisions. Each cut screaming the same message: defy the emperor, and you don't just die, you disappear. Muscle peeled from bone, ropes tightening to keep the lungs moving. And when the executioner finally lifts the still beating heart from the chest, the crowd erupts. Because your agony isn't punishment, it's theater. And the records? They kept those too. Diagrams, witness logs, manuals for the next man holding the knife. They didn't hide this, they celebrated it. So let's do what they wanted. Let's remember every cut. Let's tear open the truth of what empire calls justice. And remember to subscribe, because you're part of this now. They called it Lingchi, or slow slicing, lingering death. Because why settle for one fatal wound when you can turn a man into a meat confetti sampler? So, how do you cut someone into 4,000 pieces while they're still alive? Let's take our seats. Imperial China, starting in the 10th century and stretching into the early 1900s. All the dynasties RSVP'd for this blood-soaked matinee. Because this wasn't just punishment, it was performance. A live disassembly of the human form, complete with commentary and snacks. Imagine it's you. You're hauled into the square, arms splayed, legs roped, crowd buzzing like a festival. But the main attraction is your dismemberment, and it's legal. The magistrate unfolds your death warrant, like he's reading a dinner menu. Treason, parricide, regicide, or maybe you just annoyed the wrong eunuch. Doesn't matter. You're about to be turned into a cautionary tale, one slice at a time. And here's the twist most history books skip. It wasn't just meant to hurt. It was designed to spiritually erase you. Confucian ethics treated the body as a sacred inheritance. Your parents gave it to you whole. Mutilating it, that was cosmic betrayal. No limbs, no legacy, no face, no funeral, no burial, no peace. Your soul, condemned to drift. Your descendants, tainted. You weren't just being killed. You were being unanchored. The Qing code spelled it out. Crimes worthy of Lingchi. But treason was a blank check. It could mean plotting rebellion or just breathing near a paranoid emperor. There were even schools for this. Yes, really. Executioners trained to calibrate each cut, how to slice just deep enough to cause agony, but not enough to end it. Like chefs studying anatomy for a very specific banquet. Jesuit missionaries wrote home about it. One described a man suspended like a sacrificial ox, his flesh peeled like fruit by a man in red robes. Another added, the crowd applauded the elegance. Picture that. Blood steaming on cold stone, children on shoulders, vendors selling rice cakes next to a screaming corpse, because what's justice without a concession stand? And the crowd wasn't just allowed, they were expected. This was public pedagogy. A living billboard that says, this is what defiance looks like. Take notes. Meanwhile, a clerk in the back scribbled numbers with a brush. Cut 1, shoulder, cut 12, thigh, cut 83, eyelids. That was just the beginning. Records exist. Neat, precise, slice by slice, scream by scream. Imagine hearing your own breathing thicken, feeling each breeze on a body with less and less skin. Knowing this was science, not savagery, and through it all, Confucian sages smiled from the scrolls, because nothing says inner harmony like a bureaucrat approving soul deletion with a signature. They turned execution into homework, pain into ceremony, your suffering into a state-sponsored syllabus. And if you think this was just theory, wait until we meet Fu Zhenghua and Yuan Chonghuan, two real men who faced all 4,000 of those cuts. Because history didn't just record their deaths, it measured them, slice by slice. Now, let's walk through the mechanics, where the knife landed first, how long they made it last, and why some victims died, smiling. The Qing dynasty didn't just hire killers, they trained them. Some spent years mastering anatomy, studying where nerves hide, how skin pulls, how long a man can scream before passing out. And yes, they had exams. Imagine studying flashcards with phrases like incision depth to avoid immediate death. Confucian scholars codified the whole thing. The Qing code spelled it out: treason, parricide, mass murder. Lingchi. Here's the polite version. To be sliced in successive cuts, beginning with flesh, then tendons, then limbs. Sounds clinical. Sounds like law. But what they left out was the sound of it. The wet slap of meat hitting dirt. The crowd holding its breath for the first scream. Witnesses told the real story. One French missionary watched a man filleted alive in Beijing. The thighs, the chest, the cheeks, sliced away like roast goose, he wrote, calmly, as if serving dinner. Another, Alphonse Favier, saw the man's cheeks fall to the ground, moaning horribly, he wrote, while children watched from their father's shoulders. Because yes, this was entertainment, a family outing. Vendors sold snacks, while the condemned were turned into warnings. It wasn't just the knives, it was the theater, the stage, a wooden frame, the script, a list of crimes chanted with each cut. They began with skin, ribbons from the arms, the chest, then muscle, peeled like fruit. And they saved the genitals for last, because humiliation mattered. Sometimes the victims begged to die. But unless your family paid for mercy, you got the full performance. And the poor? They got every slice on the house. Some were even used to train new executioners. Imagine, you're still breathing, and a student's learning technique on your thigh, and if you survived day 1, they might come back for day 2. Yes, really, Fu Zhenghua didn't survive. Photographed mid-execution in 1905, chest laced with cuts, eyes open, aware. A missionary described it simply. His eyes moved the whole time. Can you imagine that? Your last memory, your soul unstitched in front of a cheering mob, your body turned into a warning, your name burned from the family record. They said this was justice. But if this was justice, what did they call cruelty? And if you think that was the worst they did, wait until they carve up one of their own. A war hero, a loyal general, a man who saved the empire and was repaid with 4,000 cuts. Yuan Chonghuan is waiting, and his story is even uglier. You've seen the blade, you've heard the crowd, but now we watch politics sharpen the knife, because Lingchi wasn't just for thieves or rebels. They used it on their own heroes. Meet Yuan Chonghuan, general of the Ming Dynasty. Brilliant, loyal, feared by the empire's enemies. He saved Beijing twice from the Manchu invasions. Twice. He stood between China and collapse. And how did they thank him? They erased him. A single lie, a forged accusation, collusion with the enemy. No trial, no inquiry, just a signature from Emperor Chongzhen. That was the Ming version of a thank you note. One scroll, one scapegoat, one butchered legacy. Now picture Yuan, dragged through the capital in chains. A man who'd saved the city, now being marched through its streets like a stray dog. Crowds screaming traitor, spitting on his name. And he knew this wasn't just a death sentence. It was a spiritual exile. His honor, gone. His family, disgraced. His legacy, incinerated before the first cut even landed. Because remember, Confucianism taught that dying whole meant honoring your ancestors. But Lingchi tore you out of the family tree. Yuan begged for a hearing. He never got one. A historian, one of the few with a spine, later wrote, "He was loyal beyond measure, but condemned without trial. A righteous man slaughtered like a beast." Execution Day, Beijing, 1630, the crowd restless, curious, hungry, all of it theater. Truth didn't matter. The emperor needed blood. They tied him to the frame, wrists bound, ankles pulled tight. No movement, no defense, no dignity. The cuts began small, meant to sting, not kill. Arms, thighs, skin peeled like parchment. Then deeper, his chest opened like a fan. Cheeks sliced clean. Blood poured down the frame in rivulets pooling at his feet. One account says he tried to speak, tried to protest, but the blood filled his throat before the words reached his lips. Another says the crowd went quiet. Even they realized this wasn't justice, it was erasure. And here's the detail they really don't want you to remember. They didn't finish him that day. Some accounts say they left him hanging overnight. Cuts open, flies gathering. The city asleep, while his wounds festered in the dark. Then they came back. Day 2, new blades, fresh hands, more punishment. Because why waste a good warning? The Qing legal archive brags about it. The traitor will suffer long, so others may fear. Yuan's family, destroyed. His sons barred from civil service, his name stripped from ancestral tablets, property seized, generations ruined. Because Lingchi didn't just kill the body, it poisoned the bloodline. All in the name of order. All beneath the banners of Confucian virtue. So tell me, was that justice, or was that state terror wearing silk robes and quoting philosophy? They don't want you to know this. They want you thinking of porcelain, poetry, the elegance of dynastic China, not the blood dripping from a general's frame. And no, it didn't stop there. Lingchi stayed on the books until 1905. Outlawed only when foreign diplomats started whispering the word. Barbaric. Too late. By then, how many screams had soaked the soil? They wanted you to forget. Yuan Chonghuan wanted him to vanish without trace. But now you know, and they can't uncut what they carved. For nearly 1,000 years, the empire turned obedience into a blade. Not just to kill, to silence, to erase. They used it on rebels, on murderers, on loyal generals who bowed 1 degree too slow. Even its abolition in 1905 wasn't justice. It was diplomacy, a cleanup job, a public relations campaign in blood-soaked robes. What it left behind were ghosts, of fathers butchered before their sons, of crowds taught to cheer while the soul was sliced away. They want you to remember porcelain and poetry. But empires write their beauty in blood. So the next time someone tells you about dynastic greatness, ask them, do they mean the paintings or the torture? Because now you've seen the truth. And if you want to see more dark history that they buried, click the video on the screen. And remember to subscribe so we can keep digging.